Hello, my name is David, and this is another video going over my razor collection. It's been a little while. I had intended on doing the videos in a more chronological type order, so to have old types and then aristocrat, stuff like that. So the next video was going to be on old types, but I got really lucky and found an ABC set that I have not yet been able to find, and it's going to take a little while to get here. So I'm just going to hold off on that. So we are going to talk about super speeds. So we're jumping a little bit forward in time, but actually not much. The super speeds are pretty cool. They must be the longest running of all Gillette DE razors. Maybe the Tech, but the super speed was sort of their bread and butter for most of the time that they were making DE razors. So the very first actual super speed was in 1947. It's right there. And those ran all the way up until 1983. That's the best guess I've heard as for when those officially stopped being made. So kind of going in order here. Although actually I would say the Malord, which came out in 1941, is basically a gold super speed. So if you've ever seen one, and I do have some, and I'll cover those in a different twist open video, but they are identical to the 47 super speed, except for those are in gold. And that's very common with Gillette. When they came out with something new and cool, what they always wanted to do is they wanted to make it a Christmas release. They wanted to make it fancy. They wanted to put it in nice leather gator box and paint it gold and sell it for Christmas. And so once the initial release is done, then it's time to start mass producing it more, and that's when we come up with a super speed. So let's start with the oldest one I have. The very first super speed, and this box is in pretty rough shape, but you can see this is also when they first came out with the Speed Pack. And the Speed Pack is a blade dispenser, and the second one to come out was this cream color. This is the first one to be available commercially with your razors, but there was a red Speed Pack that came out. It was a salesman sample, and I'd love to get my hands on one of those someday, but I had a chance and I was bidding on it, and I missed. So there would also have been a little cardboard U-shape device holding down the razor, but that I don't have. Now the interesting thing about the 47 is, although it came with the Speed Pack, what it did not have was the notch. And I'll show you what the notch is on the next razor. And the notch missing, and the fact that this does not have a date code, tells me the year it is, in addition to the box itself. So the date codes, Gillette did not have date codes from 1931 up until 1951 when they came back out with the W date code. There is a couple 1950s with the V date code, but those are really rare. If you ever look on the back of a super speed that looks like this, and you see a V date code, that is something to hold on to. So we'll move on to go with this here. This is my second oldest super speed. And this one is a bit of an interesting story, a little background here, and I wrote it down. So because 1950 razors, like I said, there's a few of them out there with a V date code, but that's extremely rare. Most of them are going to have no date code. So how do you tell if this is a 1947 or a 48 or a 50? In this case, 49 was the first year that they came out with this red case like this. So that narrows down. That's not 47 or 48. However, in 1950 is when they introduced this notch here. The first red case had no notch on it. So that narrows it down a little bit. So this is not a 1949 case because it doesn't have the notch. It's not a 1951 because it doesn't have a date code. Therefore, it's a 1950. And that would also make it a World Series special. And when I open this, I can see this does have the notch that I was mentioning earlier. And the purpose of the notch is, in the speed pack, you start to pull a blade out, and you just hook it on there, pull it right out. And the point is, they want you to be able to switch blades as fast as humanly possible so that you can buy them faster. Remember, the whole point is selling blades. Everything else is just sort of dressing, kind of like buying a printer. They really just want to sell you the ink. Okay, and let's see here. Now, going past 1950, this is right about the era where they're doing a lot of sports advertisements. So Gillette was pretty smart. They got into endorsements relatively early. And you see this picture here, that is this razor right here, which also came out the same year as this one. This is a distinctive black tip on here. This is a 1951. This is when you see that particular style. Now this one I actually have not opened yet. I just got this. It was I was actually buying a wall set of blades, and this came with it. So I may not be able to open it. So it's pretty old. It hasn't been cleaned. There's a blade still in it. Let's see. It's an original blue blade. So that tells me this has not been used in a very, very long time, because these blades haven't been out for quite a while. And the inside is got a lot of hair in it. That's just nasty. But also kind of cool. I mean, that does tell me that this razor legitimately hasn't been used for a very long time. And if I put this in a ultrasonic cleaner or something like that, more than likely it will be able to open and close with ease. And usually when you see some rust inside of a razor, like we see a little bit inside of here, that's usually from the blade. The metal the razors were made of was not prone to rust, where blades, on the other hand, were. So generally it's going to be just on the surface and not very hard to clean up. So if you see a razor in an antique store and it's got some surface rust on it, unless the plating is in terrible shape or something, there's a really good chance you're going to be able to get that rust off. Okay. And of course, these also come with speed packs. Instead of the cream, now we're up to a blue, kind of a really cool 50s looking design here. Now, why they put these notches in here, I have no idea, because without the notch you can fit a 20 blade case in here. So that would have seemed to be a lot better for Gillette. So not every decision makes a lot of sense, but that's what they did. So, I'm going to put this out of the way. I gave myself some notes here so that I can keep up with these. So now I'm going to move to the TV specials. And the TV special is pretty cool. There is the well-known 1958 TV special, and then there's the far lesser-known 1954 TV special. So unlike the 58, the 54 mostly looks like every other super speed of its era. Well, we'll get into the differences on this one, but the only real difference you can tell is that there's going to be a Z as in zebra date code on this razor, and that indicates that it's a 1954 super speed. For sure, did it come in the TV special case? Maybe, almost for sure, but not totally for sure. They did have them in other cases around the same time. But that is a big deal. That means it was made in 1954. Usually it's going to be a later date serial code. So you'll have the quarters on the other side, 1, 2, 3, and 4, 1, 2, 3, and fourth quarter, and this is a third quarter 1954. So that is further evidence that this is correct to the case. And you have your blade bank that comes with it. 6 blades is usually what you see in a new razor set. You don't always see 6 blades available to buy if you're just buying blades. So they're a little more rare. I have seen them outside of razor sets, but more than likely a 6 blade set is going to tell you that you have the actual blade dispenser that came with that set, which is really cool. Another way to tell for sure you have the blade dispenser that comes with the set is, in this case, the original instructions are still wrapped up with this 1958 TV special. So for a collector, that's a pretty big deal. That's really nice to have. It's a lot more rare. And if you look up, I believe, Razor Archives, you can see all of these inserts done out. So I have looked it up to see what it looks like, but obviously I'm not going to open that. So going into the 1958 TV special, we have the same really cool case. They both say TV on it, and you have your Super Speed. Now let's compare this to a more common flare tip Super Speed. And you'll see this one has lines going both up and down and across. The TV special, on the other hand, just has straight bars, straight lines. So a 58 TV special, you really don't even need to check the date code. They really stand out as being unique to the TV special for this particular razor. And this case is pretty cool. I like it. It's really a compact, fun case to have. All right, so around this time, Gillette starts to realize that, not one size fits all isn't really working for them. People have different preferences when it comes to shaving. You have a lot of lady customers, and arm and leg hair is nowhere near as coarse as beard hair. And so they looked into having a variety of options. We want to appeal to younger shavers and older shavers and everything in between. So what you have here is 3 different versions of the Super Speed. You have the blue tip, which is your lightest one. It's actually the exact same head that's on the Lady Gillette, which is a long handle twist to open razor. This one's made of aluminum, which is unique to the Super Speeds. And frankly, this is probably one of the only razors in my collection that I have simply because it completes the set. I have shaved with it, and this is not for me. It's just a little bit too mild, but it is nice to have the complete set of 3. On the opposite end of the spectrum, you have the red tip. And the red tip is probably the most popular and sought after of the 3. It's the most aggressive of the 3. It is the heaviest of the 3 by far. And so this is going to give you a really smooth shave. I actually use this pretty often. So I really do like this razor. I like the heft, I like the shave angle, and so it's one of my favorites. In the middle, which should appeal to most people, you have the regular. Now these were a, let's see here, this blue tip here is a 1955, and this red is a 1957. And this right in the middle is a 1956. So I thought it was kind of funny that they were all in order, 55, 56, and 57, being 57. And it's in order of aggressiveness as well. So it's just random. I didn't plan it that way, but it did sort of happen that way. So this is an example of marketing from Gillette. They did like to tie themselves to sports. And so this particular 1956 model came with a lot of little extras here. So I have an encyclopedia of baseball. And so this gives me stats going all the way from the 20s up until when it was made in the mid-50s. And you just have pre-internet, before you could look all this stuff up. This is how you could go back and look at the stats of individual players. The razor itself, as you can see, this one is marked regular because it is the middle ground. It's not the overly aggressive, it's not the overly light. This is the regular. And this one is one of the only razors in my collection that I will not use. And the reason is when I open it, you can probably not hear it on the mic, but you can feel the metal sort of grinding on itself. So what happens when you have a razor and it's used a lot, it gets soap scum in it, and that soap scum will sort of act as a lubricant in a way. It's not terribly bad, and so you have that smooth twisting motion when you open it. A brand new one that's never been used is simply metal on metal, and you can't replace that. Once you use it, that particular feel goes away. And because this is so complete, it's one of the few, and it's not like I don't have more of them. It's one of the few that I choose not to use and leave, and it's completely NOS original states. NOS mean new old stock. So this also comes with the blade bank, and there's an instruction book on the blade bank as well. So again, you can look up all of these instructions books. There's kind of all over the internet. They'll have archives that show some of these original inserts and what they had on there, but mostly it was advertisements for selling blades and shaving cream. So, all right, let's just put this out of our way for now. Let's see here. Oh yeah. All right, we're getting that through pretty quick. This, I'm not sure this is even technically would be considered a super speed, but I couldn't think of where else to put it. This is the Knack. This is also a twist to open razor. This one, when I first saw it, thought it was in the late 70s, but it's actually 1968. And this is a plastic handle, but it does have a full metal head. Some of the later Black Beauty adjustables, they even went plastic in the razor part. And this just twists pretty quick and easy, and it has one single shave angle. It's a very simple razor, very inexpensive. You see it was $1.49, and the packaging on this is also a lot more compact. You're not going to see fancy leather cases and velvet and stuff like that. This is just a hang from the rack, pick it up at the store razor here. So like I said, the Super Speeds go through a huge amount of time. You have them pop up in a lot of different cases. This is a travel case, and so you have Gillette Sunup, which I'm sure a lot of people would love to see them come back out with this. It sort of has Sunup has a bit of its own following and can be a little difficult to find. I actually do have a half full bottle of this as well, and that one I actually did use. And it's fine. At least it's like Southern Witchcrafts and Chateau and Luke have come up with much better smells. So you have foamy, you have some deodorant in here, and this has a nice kind of 60s look to it. You're going to have a little bit of instructions here on how to operate the razor, and a little bit of information about what's in there, and of course a reminder to buy Gillette blades. And there would have been folded a little price tag thing here. Unfortunately, that I don't have. So this is also in 1956. So this is the same year as the one with the encyclopedia. So the exact same razor, although you do have a slightly different blade blank. blade bank. Say that 20 times quick. And literally the same instructions. So I think I may have instructions for more than one case in here, but that's okay. If I do find another case someday, I will have some instructions ready for it, and maybe that would be one I could pass along. So, oops. Okay, so let's get into the last of what I would consider super speeds. And this is about what they looked like up until they were done in the 80s. And this happens to be my birth year razor, 1974. So that would make it a U date code. And it's a little dirty, sorry. I also use it. And it shaves fine. It's nothing super special about it. It was a very basic razor. But I do like it. So I have used it and will continue to do so. And I also have the exact same razor. Same year, same everything, but this one is painted to look cool. So there's a couple companies that do this. A lot of them are out of business. I believe this was Delta Echo, but unfortunately Delta Echo is no longer here. And this for sure is Delta Echo. Here's another Super Speed, which I call my Darth Vader razor. And it's black with a single red stripe. And they paint these with what's called gun coat. It's a paint used to coat guns. And that makes it a very durable type paint. I do know of one company still around doing this, and it's called Sherlock Razors. And Justin at Sherlock does a great job. So I would recommend him to anybody. All right, so the European version of the Super Speed, that is called a rocket. And if you ever want to tell whether or not you have a Super Speed or a rocket, there's an easy way to do that. Let's get this out of our way. And that would be right here. Hey, kitty. You can see there's a gap right here, and there's no gap on the American version of the same razor. So when you open a rocket, it travels up, and then the gap's no longer there. When you open an American, the bottom doesn't move at all. It just stays straight. So you have a mechanism inside that lifts. Right here, the mechanism presumably lifts at the bottom notch. This is the same for the older type Super Speeds that we looked at earlier. There is a version of this called the Rocket that's also made in England, and it would also have that same gap. So if you see that gap, that would be the difference. And if you see it on a gold Malord, you just struck a lot of money, because that would be the one and only rocket that was made in the US. So that's worth keeping an eye out for. But you're not likely to find one. They're very, very, very rare. So, and then everything else is pretty much the same. It's just the bottom part of the handle. So with the end of the Super Speed in 1983, that was right about the time that double edge razors ended. So this is when Gillette starts going into the Track 2. This is a demonstrator. You're actually used to open this with a can opener. And I never did. Wouldn't really want to use it anyway, but it's just kind of an interesting piece to have. And another sort of in-between D and cartridge razors was this Techmatic razor. One cool thing about this razor, though, is this was used by, not this particular one, but this type of razor was used by Michael Collins in the Apollo 11 mission. So it didn't actually go to the moon, because Collins had the very scary job of orbiting the moon and picking Buzz and Neil back up after their historic moonwalk. Every astronaut was allowed to bring a little something with him, and this is what he wanted. He wanted this plus a tub of Old Spice brushless shaving cream. And if I ever find one of those, I'm going to make a shadow box with this and that Old Spice brushless shave cream and a Life magazine from the moon landing. So that would be, I think, a pretty cool shadow box display. And then they just went crazy after that. They lost their minds, started making crazy stuff like this with this incredibly uncomfortable brush with the shaving cream insert. The shaving cream would come up through the brush and you know, just crazy gimmicky. And the razor that we know now. So personally, I very much prefer double-edged razors, obviously, but that is sort of a walk through the history of it. So that's why I chose Superspeed, because Superspeed really, technically, I would say 1941 pre-war, and then obviously World War II shut down production of pretty much everything, and except for a couple of Bakelite razors, which I have and will show during the military razors. But then as soon as civilian production picked back up, Superspeed was pretty much the first thing they made, and it was the go-to double-edged razor all the way up until the end of the game around the 80s. And so it's a good collection to find. Most of them are relatively easy to find because they were so plentiful. So if you do want to collect some razors, the Superspeed is a great place to start. So that will conclude. If I get lucky and I get the mail in, I may be able to go to the old types next, so I get that ABC in. If not, then maybe some of the earlier twist opens, like the Malord and the Aristocrats and some stuff like that. So, but that's it for now, and thanks for sticking with me. Bye.